Hey everyone, it's Kristen Rohan and Rob Hanks from The Curiate, and we are here to tell you the latest and greatest of what's happening in AR/VR and specifically around our latest June meetup. So take it away, Rob, and let us know what's happening.
Well, Kristen, we're in a digital maturity phase, and so every month we run a meetup at EY in Britomart over in Auckland City, and it's to allow people to participate in the revolutionary and emerging technologies that are happening in spatial computing, which is a point of use technology, and it's very different than the conventional way that we've actually worked before. Now, in latest news, we know that technologies are merging at the moment. Now, these are spatial computing technologies, in other words, technologies that talk to each other. A little bit like in Terminator, Rise of the Machines, Skynet. We've got robotics and neural thinking, and we've got IoT and cloud, AI, AR, VR, beacons, and NFC chips, etc. Just like that. And of course, all brought together by data in the cloud. So in the latest news, which is the first phase of our meetup, we talk about what is the latest and greatest news happening in the world. We know that the larger institutionalized systems like Google and Microsoft and Amazon are buying up smaller, less mature organizations that have got innovative technologies. And we're finding that the organizations who have lean frameworks in place are in the perfect position to leverage the new technologies. But before I get into that, let me just let you know about more of the latest news. There is a global skilled shortage over the next 5 years. One example is in America, 22% of people will be over the age of 55 in just 3 years' time. Now, that is not very different than what's happening in Japan and New Zealand as well. Driven by aging populations, there is going to be a skills shortage. Those companies that are slow to respond to this particular problem will continue to get slow economic growth. And there are some very compelling reasons to take the initiative and start learning about spatial computing point-of-use technology now. Now, that's the latest news. So we move on to what we call the TikTok workshop and specialist lean speaking. So we're going to talk about business frameworks, how those companies that have a framework in place to standardize and improve their business can then use technology to take a step change and actually improve their profits. So the first thing we've got to ask ourselves is, what is a business framework? Well, to answer that question, we've got to go back a few years to about World War II. What happened in World War II is that many of the men went off to fight in the wars, and the women went into the factories to make the munitions so their sons and husbands could fight and win the war. But what happened was that there was so much variability when producing the munitions that the guns would jam, the bullets would backfire, the grenades would prematurely explode, and it would kill the people that they were trying to protect. So what happened then was the government, they invited specialists like Arthur Deming into the factories to establish standardized ways of building munitions. Now, that included a lean framework, a Six Sigma framework, Malcolm Baldrige criteria, all came out of this initial thinking of standardizing the workflow process to reduce the variation between production and service. That's how it came about. If you think of Lean or Six Sigma as Lego for business, it's a collection of tools and techniques that people can use, businesses can use, that form the building blocks for business. Now that standardizes and makes your processes effective and repeatable. So the customers that you service get a standardized and expected product. But of course, business doesn't stand still, and other businesses who employ business frameworks like Lean and Six Sigma in the Malcolm Baldrige criteria, they will catch up to you. And so, by design, business is competitive. Margins decrease, and people look for new ways to increase profits. The great news is that we are in a digital maturity phase, a new revolution of technology. Now, you've got to remember that 35 years ago, we did not have the computer. And even 15 years ago, no mobile phone. And technology has now gone into spatial computing, which is like technology that talks to each other and is also a point of use technology, so you don't have to be at the workplace to use it. You can be anywhere to use it. Now, to use spatial computing technology, and that's the reason for our meetup. So spatial computing allows you to make a step change in your business. It's a different way of thinking, and it's important that you participate to learn about this new technology and implement it in your business. Otherwise, it will be done to you rather than you taking the initiative and doing it for yourself. There's a couple of really interesting things that are happening at the moment at the meetup. Every month we talk about a new industry, and we talk about the strategies of how people overseas are using the same technology to improve their businesses. So although we're about 3 to 5 years behind the other countries, we can learn off their mistakes, and more importantly, we can learn off their advantages. We're talking about the right tech at the right time and the right place, speeding up the work processes, letting us be less reliant on people and more reliant on repeatable outcomes. One other valuable piece of information is the Curiate is now part of the Auckland Council Engagement Technology Supplier Panel. So if the local government have put their faith in us, maybe you should too. So I encourage you to come along to the monthly meetup. It's at EY, second Wednesday of every month, the Augmented Reality Experience Auckland.
Thanks, Rob. That was a great meetup, and I can't wait till next time. What is the next topic for July?
Well, the next month we've got Work as We Know It, Employees and Skills. So we're talking about recruitment and how technology, the spatial computing technology, is used to improve the recruitment, sales, careers, and training prospects.
Great. And there's a link to the meetup, not only in this presentation, but will be in the description too. We hope to see you there.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
Just before we go. Now, the meetups have been very heavy on strategy and helping businesses to learn about how to implement the technology in their business. But we've actually ordered some equipment from China so people can come along and actually start using the equipment and evaluate for themselves how they might be able to use it in their own business.
Oh, fantastic. And don't forget that every month we are going a little bit further in creating a game using...
Oh, the Greater Good Project?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. The whole impetus behind that was that as people come along, they can participate in creating their own augmented experience. So they learn the different components of putting one of these technology juggernauts together.
Oh, fantastic. And I just think it's so great for whether I'm an enthusiast or I'm actually working in one of these, in spatial computing or AR, VR, to really be able to understand how it works and how I can use it in other areas of my life. Then I feel like I'm going to be part of the future and not just not knowing what the future is going to happen, right? We watch movies like Star Trek or Back to the Future or whatever, and we think
Terminator, yeah.
Or Terminator. Yeah, who knew that was going to be so exciting?
Yeah.
But we see that these worlds exist, and I think, is that really going to happen?
They do.
Or
Yep.
But now I feel like I can see it happening because I can understand how it happens and that I can be a part of it. And even though I might not be alive and,
Oh, no. These things, you are alive, and these things are happening right now. For example, in Terminator with the robotics, they actually have military machines which can run across turf and across uneven surfaces to deliver a result. And I'm not talking about drones. I'm talking about land-based, robotic, spatial, computed, engineered products that are real and live today.
Right. So that's even better to share with everyone, to say, okay, so you might not understand a lean framework and you may not be ready to integrate it in your business, but if you really want to understand and visualize what that could mean for you, then watch some of these movies or read some of these books. That would be really great to get people on board.
And then come to the meetup.
And then come to the
because
meetup.
It'll put it in context and we can actually give you the bones to actually harness it yourself.
Right. And before we leave, I just want to mention, so you were talking about the women that were working in the factories during World War II.
That's correct.
And there's a show out there called Bomb Girls. And it actually, that's the whole premise, is the women that go into the factories and how unsafe and scary and, sometimes gruesome their experiences were.
Yes.
And so to visualize that part of the story, go check it out because it is, sometimes it's a hard watch, but it's definitely, not just about women in the factories, but but sets the tone for what we're doing in spatial computing and specifically about this meetup.
Absolutely. That's the basis of it. Thank you very much for inviting me along today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And we have a meetup, of course, the second Wednesday in July.
So see you soon, and thanks for joining The Curate. Have a great one, everyone.
See you guys.